The 2008 National Electrical Code requires a minimum service ampacity of 100 amps for single-family dwellings and 150 amps for multi-family dwellings with 6 or more units. However, this requirement only applies to new installations and major renovations. Existing installations are grandfathered in and may not meet the current code requirements. The California Electrical Code incorporates the National Electrical Code by reference and adds additional requirements for installations in California. Section 220.82 of the California Electrical Code requires a minimum service ampacity of 100 amps for single-family dwellings and 150 amps for multi-family dwellings with 6 or more units. This requirement applies to both new and existing installations. Given a scenario with 6 apartments in one building, each with a 30-amp main breaker, assessing code compliance involves several steps. Firstly, it's essential to contact a qualified electrician. An electrician can inspect the existing electrical system and determine if it meets the current code requirements. Secondly, calculate the minimum load according to the 2002 National Electrical Code. This will give an estimate of the minimum ampacity required for each apartment. Thirdly, consider upgrading the main breaker and subpanel. If the existing main breaker is only 30 amps, it may need to be replaced with a higher ampacity breaker to meet the minimum load requirement. Fourthly, replace the existing wires. If the existing wires are not rated for the higher ampacity, they will need to be replaced. When evaluating the existing 30-amp breaker size for the apartments, several factors must be considered. The age of the electrical installation is a critical factor. Electrical codes evolve, and older installations may not meet current standards. The National Electrical Code and the California Electrical Code have specific requirements for minimum service ampacity. The California Electrical Code Section 220.82 mandates a minimum service ampacity of 100 amps for single-family dwellings and 150 amps for multi-family dwellings with 6 or more units, applicable to both new and existing installations. Since the apartment building has 6 units, this 150 amp minimum service ampacity is relevant. However, the 30 amp main breaker per apartment raises concerns. The existing installation might be grandfathered in, meaning it was compliant at the time of installation but doesn't meet current code. The 2002 National Electrical Code load calculation involves several steps to determine the minimum ampacity required. It's essential to calculate the total load for each apartment, including lighting, receptacles, and fixed appliances. For general lighting, the National Electrical Code specifies a minimum of 3 volt-amps per square foot. Considering the 480 square foot apartment size, this equates to 1440 volt-amps for general lighting. For small appliance circuits, the National Electrical Code requires a minimum of 2 20-amp circuits for the kitchen and dining area. Each 20-amp circuit is calculated at 1500 volt-amps, totaling 3000 volt-amps for small appliances. For the bathroom, a minimum of 1 20-amp circuit is required, calculated at 1500 volt-amps. The refrigerator and microwave loads must also be included. The refrigerator's nameplate rating should be used, and the microwave should be calculated based on its maximum power consumption. Additionally, any other fixed appliances, such as air conditioners or water heaters, must be included in the load calculation. After calculating the total load, demand factors can be applied. Demand factors recognize that not all loads will be operating simultaneously. The National Electrical Code provides tables for demand factors based on the type and number of loads. Applying appropriate demand factors will provide a more realistic estimate of the minimum ampacity required. After calculating the minimum ampacity required, compare it to the existing 30 amp breaker size. If the calculated ampacity exceeds 30 amps, the main breaker and associated wiring may need to be upgraded. Upgrading the main breaker and subpanel may be necessary to meet the increased ampacity requirements. The subpanel must be rated for the new breaker size and have sufficient capacity for all the circuits it serves. Upgrading the wiring may also be necessary. The existing wires must be rated for the higher ampacity to prevent overheating and potential fire hazards. The wire size must be appropriate for the breaker size and the length of the run. The National Electrical Code provides tables for wire ampacity based on wire type, insulation, and installation method. Consulting with a qualified electrician is essential. A qualified electrician can perform a thorough inspection of the existing electrical system, conduct the necessary load calculations, and recommend appropriate upgrades. They can ensure that all work is performed in accordance with the National Electrical Code and the California Electrical Code. It is important to note that electrical work can be dangerous, and it should only be performed by qualified individuals. Working with electricity without proper training and experience can result in serious injury or death. The electrical system in the apartment building should be inspected regularly to ensure that it is safe and in good working order. Regular inspections can help identify potential problems before they become serious hazards. It is also important to maintain the electrical system properly. This includes replacing worn or damaged components, keeping electrical panels clean and dry, and avoiding overloading circuits. Addressing specific concerns regarding the 30-amp breaker, its adequacy hinges on whether it can safely handle the calculated load. If the load calculation reveals that the apartments require more than 30 amps, upgrading to a larger breaker is essential. Furthermore, consider the long-term implications of electrical usage. As technology evolves, the demand for electricity may increase. Upgrading the electrical system to a higher capacity can provide additional capacity for future needs. For example, the increasing use of electric vehicles may require additional charging capacity. The National Electrical Code provides guidance on calculating the load for electric vehicle charging equipment. In conclusion, determining the minimum breaker requirement for the apartments involves a thorough assessment of the existing electrical system, load calculations based on the National Electrical Code, and consideration of the California Electrical Code requirements. Consulting with a qualified electrician is essential to ensure that all work is performed safely and in accordance with applicable codes. The focus should be on ensuring the safety and reliability of the electrical system for all occupants of the apartment building. Remember, electrical codes are in place to protect people and property from electrical hazards. Adhering to these codes is essential to prevent fires, shocks, and other electrical accidents. The steps outlined will ensure that the electrical system is safe, reliable, and adequate for the needs of the occupants. It also ensures compliance with current electrical codes and standards. It is crucial to prioritize safety and consult with qualified professionals throughout the process.